and today our subject is titled The Act of Witness. This is part A, the act of witness. The terms shahada and shahid are derived from the root word shin ha dal, shahada, which appears 160 times in the book. Its first occurrence is in Surat Baqara, and call your witnesses shahadaikum, or helpers, if there are any besides God, if your doubts are true. Chapter 2 verse 23, and it is mentioned for the last time in Surat Buruj, and God is witness Shahidun to all things, chapter 85 verse 9. None of the 160 occurrences of Shahada even remotely concern martyrs and martyrdom. It is indeed a mystery how this bizarre meaning could have ever been associated with the act of giving witness. Al-Shahid is one of the 99 names of God and describes him as someone who is permanently present and who is near you, so as to see, hear, and listen, as the two following verse confirm. He is with you wherever you are. He sees all that you do. Hadid, Surat Hadid, verse 4. It was he who created man, and we know what dark suggestions his soul makes to him, for we are nearer to him than his jugular vein. Qaf 16. The message is clear. God can only see, hear, and listen, be a witness, because he is present. He is with you. He is nearer to you than your jugular vein. The active particle of shahada is a shahid, one who is witnessing, from which shahid is derived. The dual of a shahid is shahidan. The dual of a shahid is shahidan, and the dual of a shaheed is shahidain. Al-shahidun is the plural of a shahid, and a shuhada of a shaheed. Both terms describe the act of witnessing, but they denote two different types of it. The first type of witnessing, a shaheed, requires the witness to be physically present when something happens and to directly observe and perceive things with his own senses. The second type, shahid, does not demand physical presence, as it requires the witness to testify according to his previously acquired knowledge. The act of witnessing gives in the latter is based on empirical evidence that is similar to a legal case, which is assessed purely on the basis of evidence that the police or lawyer has provided. In telling the story of Joseph's seduction by Potiphar's wife, the book provides an example of a witness who, even though he was not a member of the household and not even present when the incident happened, was able to testify against Potiphar's wife purely by looking at the state of Joseph's shirt. He said, "It was she that sought to seduce me." He said, "It was she that sought to seduce me from my true self. And one of her household saw this and bore witness." Shahidun. Thus, if it be that his shirt is rent from the front, then is her tale true, and he is a liar. But if it be that his shirt is torn from the back, then is she the liar, and he is telling the truth. Chapter Yusuf, verse 26-27. The book employs shahada as follows: 1. As a term for physical presence, eyewitness, the new moon of Ramadan, Baqarah 185. 2. As a term for physical presence in the form of companionship, when Jesus denied that he had ever asked his disciples to worship both God and Mary, the term witness is used to point to the time when he was alive, when I was a witness over them during my time with them. After his death, that is, after his presence with or witness over them, he refused to take responsibility for his disciples' actions. I told them only what you commanded me to: worship God my Lord and your Lord. I was a witness, Shahid, over them during my time among with them. Ever since you took my soul, you alone have been the watcher, al-Raqib, over them. You are witness, Shahidan, to all things. Al-Ma'idah 117. This is Jesus speaking in the day of judgment, in the future, and we will talk about how to understand the Quran, talking about the past, present, and the future. We'll explain that in another video. Number 3, as a term for someone who is present at the writing of a commercial contract or an official document and confirms its existence with their testimony, showing that they have seen with their own eyes that the partners of the contract or the author of the document have signed it. Baqarah 282. 4, as a term for the 4 witnesses who are present during an act of lewdness. These 4 male witnesses must tell in a court of law what they saw with their own eyes. If any of your women are guilty of lewdness, take the evidence of 4 reliable witnesses from among you against them. An-Nisa 15. We learn from these examples that in the book a witness has 5 characteristics. 1. A Shaheed witness, note the long E, Shaheed, is required to be physically present when something happens. If they give evidence of an event that they themselves did not attend, their status is that of a Shahid witness. Shahid, witness, the long A at the beginning. Point B. A Shaheed, al-Shaheed, witness is by definition alive. If someone is dead, their status as a witness ceases, as in the case of Jesus. We have learned in chapter 5, verse 117, that after Jesus' death, only Allah alone remained to be the watcher, al-Raqib, over his disciples. He eternally is a witness, Shahidan, to all things. Shahidan, the long E now. But when a human being dies, the witnessship ends. Point 3. A Shaheed witness is more precise and accurate than a Shahid witness who does not base his account on direct experiences. Even if one were able to completely reconstruct a scene from the past, the account of an eyewitness who was actually present at the scene will always provide more details and depth. Point 4. According to Baqarah 282, contracts are only valid if they are testified to by a Shaheed witness. If they are testified to by a Shahid witness, the contracts are invalid. Now 5, a Shaheed is someone, a Shaheed is not someone who is killed or kills himself on the battlefield, but for example, the journalist who is embedded in a military unit and reports home what he has witnessed at the battlefield, at the battlefront. Whether he is killed in action or whether he returns alive does not at all matter to his status as a Shaheed. Similarly, the peace activist who is thrown into prison alongside murderers, thieves, and drug dealers because he protested peacefully against the government's atrocities and numerous violations of human rights, he is also a true Shaheed, plural Shahada, because he dared to witness the truth in the face of an inhuman regime. It has become clear that it is unjustifiable to associate the Quranic term Shaheed or Shuhada with martyrs or martyrdom. The evidence from the book is supported by the hadith literature. One particular hadith stands out because it has been transmitted in not less than 139 variations of text, matn, and in as many chains of narration, isnad. This hadith narrates how Muhammad responded to his companionship. Note the many variations. Answer to his question, who of you is a Shaheed? They say, whoever was killed in the way of Allah is a Shaheed. Muhammad said, verily the Shuhada of my nation in that case are very few. They said, if we are not right in our definition of a shaheed, then who are they, O Messenger of Allah? He said, whoever was killed in the way of God is a shaheed, and whoever died in the way of God is a shaheed, and whoever died due to illness of the stomach is a shaheed. In another hadith, Muhammad's definition is much wider. He said, whoever was killed in defense of his wealth is a shaheed, and whoever was killed in defense of his family is a shaheed, and whoever was killed in defense of his religion is a shaheed, and whoever was killed in defense of his blood, in example life, is a shaheed. In the third hadith, the Prophet's views are even more comprehensive. He said there are 5 ways, and whoever died in one of them is a martyr. The one who is killed in the way of God, the one who is drowned in the way of God, the one who suffered due to the illness of the stomach is in the way of God, the one who suffered due to plague in the way of God, and the woman in childbirth in the way of God. A fourth hadith adds, whoever departed, went away in the way of God and died or was killed is a shaheed. Whoever breaks his neck by falling off a horse or a camel, for example, is a shaheed. Whoever is bitten by a poisonous creature, or whoever dies in his bed by any death Allah wished for him, is indeed a shaheed. For him there is paradise. Finally, a fifth hadith concludes. He said, whoever was killed fighting against oppression is a shaheed. Muhammad was obviously not happy with the very narrow definition of shaheed that his companions gave. He rebuked them by saying, verily the shahada of my nation in that case are very few. He corrects them by providing a wider definition that is more compatible with the concept of the book. He also includes, however, the components of death and killing for God in his definition, which is, as we have shown, an innovation that is against the message of the book. We have broadly defined the semantic field in which the term shahada is used in the book. Presents in the month of Ramadan, guardianship and social presence, eyewitness of the new moon, signing of a contract or official document, and witnessing an act of lewdness, for examples. And none of them have any association with death, killing, or martyrdom. We have also distinguished shahid from shaheed in that the former witness is not required to attest to something he has seen with his own 2 eyes. Those who, according to the shahada, witness the existence of God are shahid, witnesses, not shaheed, witnesses, because God can neither be seen nor heard. When the book says that Allah sent Muhammad as a witness of God, it uses the term shahid and not shaheed. To deny this and to claim to be a shaheed of God would be an anthropomorphous God. It will be to anthropomorphous God, because it was implied that we actually see him with our own eyes. Allah the highly exalted is above what they ascribe to him. Critics of our definition of shaheed may come along and reject it on the grounds that it is too comprehensive. They might object to our notion that basically every single one of us can become a shaheed, men and women with no distinction. If we accept the Prophet's definition but take the component of death away, one might say that most of us will seek knowledge in one way or another, or will provide for home and family, or will suffer one way or another from some kind of disease. This will be enough to make us shuhada. Our answer to this is that our definition of shuhada, we first of all made sure that we did not depart from the semantic field of shahada as it is defined in the book. Given that the plural shuhada is ungendered and connotes witness by men and women, there is no linguistic restriction that would exclude women from being shuhada. Our definition also remains faithful to the hadith of the Prophet. It does not include, however, his reference to death, whoever was killed, since this contradicts the book. As said, a shaheed cannot be dead. He must be alive, present, and see with his own eyes. He witnesses what is evident before his own eyes. A witness of something that is absent, ghaib, is impossible. For us today, Muhammad's community is absent insofar as it is not present in the current level of civilization, civilizational development, and the current modes of production. The other question is whether someone who is killed, for example, in a car accident or by drowning in a river, is to be considered a shaheed. Since death itself cannot be taken as a decisive component, we need to define the circumstances of his death and explore the reason why he was killed. We need to define other criteria that make someone a shaheed. We believe that everyone who is killed in an accident is a shaheed, a witness of his accident, and that hell or paradise, reward or punishment have nothing to do with it. It will be that death has been decreed as our common lot, in this sense of witnessing your own death. All the graves of Muslims and non-Muslims alike become graves of shuhada. Our understanding of the prophetical hadith is that the shuhada are those who are still alive. What Muhammad meant to say is that those who witness a serious illness or those who witness a cruel war are the real shuhada. Since it is impossible to witness either illness or war as a dead person, death was mentioned in the hadith only in order to express the idea that if death comes, it abruptly ends the act of giving witness. We understand that those listed as prophets, siddiqun, shuhada, salihun, and such are those who, when still alive, publicly declared their faith and for which they eventually gave their lives. Giving their lives was the price they paid for their open declaration of the shahada, but their death alone did not define them as shuhada. They did not hurt or kill anybody. They just behaved bravely when they defenseless and unarmed. Defenseless and unarmed, faced a mighty opposition. Abu Bakr, the Prophet's companion, for example, did not earn his title of honor as Siddiq through his death, but through his sincerity, righteousness, and bravery while he was still alive. In fact, if someone witnesses the signing of a sales contract and is killed because of his act of witnessing, he will indeed be listed next to the prophets, Siddiqun, Shuhada, Salihun, and such, not because we dare to say, but in spite of his death, because he never wanted to lose his life. Our point of contention is that it is not death as such which is the deciding factor of being a shaheed. Peace activists who witness the cruelty of their own government and pledge their shahada are certainly shuhada, regardless of whether they are killed or continue to protest until they die naturally. Our views correspond with social and political reality because those who die for their convictions are killed because of their witnesses are few. If death is one aspect of being a true shaheed, it would apply to the unarmed, peaceful journalist who is killed by a sniper bullet while reporting the news from a far zone. What about the suicide bomber who blows himself up in the middle of a busy marketplace, killing hundreds of innocent people? Civilian. Is he a shaheed? Or are those civilians who are killed during such incidents shuhada? What about the human rights activist who takes part in a peaceful protest demonstration? Is he a shaheed? Or are those politicians shuhada? Who ordered a massive crackdown on the protesters, arresting and torturing hundreds of them on a pretext of maintaining public order and national security, while in reality fearing that public protests might reveal their corrupt deals with the army, the police, Clearly, the defense of a nation's security in the face of outside aggression is an objective necessity and must not be mixed up with the concept of jihad or shahada. The peaceful spread of a religious message by persuasion and good argument is, whether it is done by men or women, a laudable activity if and only if it is done in God's way. Whether someone dies during a mission should not matter at all. To seek knowledge and to maintain a family are praiseworthy acts if and only if it is done in God's way. Whether someone dies doing his duties or in his job should not matter at all. Women will be rewarded for enduring menstruation and childbirth whether they die or not. The activist who fights against tyranny and for democracy and social justice surely deserves paradise if and only if his protest is done in God's way. Whether he dies during his struggle should not matter. All of these activities, however, are not related to the concept of shaheed, that is, to witness with your own eyes, nor to shuhada as proposed by the book. And if you are in doubt about to what we have revealed from time to time to our servant, then produce a surah like thereunto and call your witness shahada'akum, or helpers if there are any besides God, if your doubts are true. If your doubts are true. Baqara verse 23. I call them not to witness ma ashhadtuhum, the creation of the heavens and the earth, nor even their own creation, nor is it for helpers such as me to take as lead men astray. Kahf 51. Or you believe, stand out firmly for God and witnesses, shuhada, to fair dealing. Ma'idah 8. These three verses support our reading of the book. Not even remotely do they link to the act of witnessing to be killed on the battlefield or to dying for Allah's cause. Even if we consider verses that use istishhad, the fuqaha's term for martyrdom, we still cannot see any connection to violent death, and get to witnesses shahidain, istashhadu shahidain out of your own men. Baqarah 282. If any of your women are guilty of lewdness, take the evidence of 4 reliable witnesses, istashhadu, from amongst you against them. Nisa 15. We still need to clarify the meaning of the phrase in God's way, fi sabilillah, which is so often used and abused in the context of the debate about jihad. Let us first start with the preposition in, fi. It can be used in basically 3 different ways. 1, a preposition of time and place, meaning in, at, on, near, by, within, during, among, through, and such, either literally or metaphorically. For example, say, travel through the earth. Travel through the earth, fi. Ankabut 20. Uses fi literally within an adverbial clause of place. And so Moses conceived in his mind fi nafsihi, a sort of fear. Taha 67. Even though fi means literally in, the fear in Moses' head is nevertheless not real. Finally, within a few years, room uses fi as a preposition of time. 2, as a preposition of cause, meaning because of or for. For example, the hadith says a woman entered hell because of the cat she imprisoned. That is, the woman will be punished because of fi, her cruelty in her cat. Number 3, as a preposition meaning in the company of or with, as in he will say, enter you in the company of fi, the peoples who passed away before you, men and jinns, into the fire. Al-A'raf 38. In all 3 instances, fi always points to something that is inside, hidden, or secretly concealed. If we, for example, say, I will look into it, fihi, it indicates that one is keen to discover or disclose what is still hidden or concealed. The noun sabil, often translate as cause, literally mean way, course, or means, and is used in a neutral sense, that is, it can be theologically a good or bad path, since the term has such is value free. Its actual nature is determined by either the context, the textual context, or the explicit attributes. For example, way of God or way of evil. It took its course, sabiluhu, through the sea in a marvelous way. Kaf 63. Invite all to the way of your Lord, sabila rabbaka, with wisdom and beautiful preaching. Nahl 125. And the first verse, sabil, literally means path, while the second verse uses sabil figuratively as way, in the sense of manner or method. It says way of the Lord, that is his manner, method, or doctrine, referring to the straight path of God. But sabil can also turn into a way of evil, that is, of deviation, aberration, and deceit, as we hear in the following verse. Those who believe fight in the cause of God, fi sabil Allah, and those who reject fight in the cause of evil, fi sabil at-taghut. Nisa 76. The phrase in God's way, fi sabilillah, can be found 70 times in the book. In several instances, it connotes a fight, struggle, even military battle. In other instances, it refers to a struggle for family, nafaqah, in the form of sustenance, clothing, and shelter. It is often used in connection with the term jihad, less often with the command to travel the world. In all instances, however, it demands doing something in his way, that is, according to Allah's way, method, or path. It is not used to demand a human sacrifice for Allah's cause. The idea that people should sacrifice their and other people's life for a higher divine aim is not found in the book. Fight in God's way cannot mean kill other people or sacrifice yourself for God. Allah is greater than that anyone should kill for him. What does in God's way mean? We believe it means that in the struggle for nafaqah, for example, one should seek money and property in a legal and ethical way. One should not squander things that are permitted, nor should one be parsimonious and forbid what is allowed. One should neither be excessive nor miserly, and one should abstain from what is forbidden. If one abides by these rules, he indeed lives in God's way. However, if these rules are broken, one strays from the way of God, fi sabilillah, and follows on the path of evil, sabil at-taghut, and spend of your substance in the cause of Allah, fi sabilillah. And make not your own hands contribute to your destruction, but do good, for God loves those who do good. Baqara 195. Those who spend their substance in the cause of God, fi sabil Allah, and follow up not their gift with reminders, their generosity, or with injury, for them their reward is with their Lord. Baqarah 262. Behold, you are those invited to spend of your substance in the way of God, fi sabilillah. But among you are some that are miserly, but any who are miserly are so at the expense of their own souls. Muhammad verse 38. These verses ask us to spend sustenance in God's way, fi sabilillah. This can be done in many ways. One may nourish and feed the dependents of the family. One may give sadaqat and support charitable organization. One may finance a school or nursery or a clinic. All these things cover sustenance in God's way. In contrast, however, it is against God's way to establish security services that terrorize the population. It is against God's way to supply paramilitary organizations with rocket-propelled grenades to shoot down civilian airplanes. It is against God's way to provide militant groups with explosives, which they detonate as bombs in crowded marketplaces or on trains containing hundreds of commuters during the rush hour. Killing innocent people who have not killed anyone and who have never been involved in any military operations.